For almost 400 years, this face was hiding something. A bearded man in a plain Dutch cap, until restorers wiped the old paint away and found a turban underneath. So who painted over it? And what were they trying to erase? In the summer of 2026, a painting came up for sale in London that almost nobody had been paying attention to. For centuries, it had drifted through the art world with the wrong name attached. Dismissed, overpainted, half forgotten. Then conservators began to clean it. And layer by layer, a secret came back to life. This is, "Let the little children come unto me." And it was begun by a 21-year-old named Rembrandt. In 1627, Rembrandt van Rijn was not the giant we know today. He was a miller's son from the Dutch town of Leiden, barely into his 20s, still teaching himself how to be a genius. He took on an ambitious biblical scene, Christ surrounded by a crowd, blessing the children brought before him. But look closely at that crowd, and you are not really looking at strangers. You are looking at Rembrandt's own family. Art historians believe the older woman near the center is his mother, Dutchman. Other faces may be relatives. And near the edge, a young man in white gazes out at us. And experts think that is Rembrandt himself painting his own face into a holy scene. In fact, that little self-portrait is the whole reason we know this is a Rembrandt at all. Because for most of its life, nobody did. The painting was catalogued under other names, at one point given to a completely different Dutch artist. In 2014, it sold at a German auction as an anonymous old work, for a tiny fraction of what a real Rembrandt commands. Then, a sharp-eyed Amsterdam dealer named Jan Six studied that young man in white and recognized the face of the 20-year-old Rembrandt looking back at him. Overnight, an anonymous painting had one of the most famous authors in history. And if a lost Rembrandt hiding in plain sight is your kind of story, do that young painter a favor and subscribe to Art and Beyond. There is a whole channel of these waiting for you. Because the strangest discovery in this picture wasn't the signature. It was under the surface. When the conservators started lifting away the later overpaint, they realized one figure had been quietly changed. A bearded man, seen for generations in an ordinary Dutch cap, had originally been given something very different, a turban. And in the visual language of Rembrandt's world, a turban carried a meaning. This was an outsider, an Eastern man, someone of another faith, standing shoulder to shoulder with Christians and Jews in a scene all about who gets welcomed in. Remember where and when this was painted. Leiden in the 1620s was a crowded, booming refuge, one of the few corners of Europe where Protestants, Catholics and Jews lived side by side, while the rest of the continent tore itself apart in decades of religious war. Refugees arrived by the thousand. So for a young artist in that city to slip a robed Eastern stranger into a sacred moment and treat him as just another face in the crowd being welcomed in may not have been an accident at all. So what did the young Rembrandt mean by it? The art historian who examined the painting for the sale, Andrew Graham-Dixon, offered a striking idea that Rembrandt, in a Leiden crowded with refugees from Europe's savage religious wars, was quietly painting a message of tolerance. Everyone welcome, whatever they believed. It is a beautiful reading, but even he was careful. "I wouldn't like to say that it's definitely a Muslim," he admitted, "and not everyone sees it his way." Because there is another clue. On that turban sits a faint inscription, a number, which some specialists read as a reference to the Gospel of St. Luke. And if they are right, the figure is not a foreign stranger at all. He is Saint Luke, the evangelist, in disguise as an exotic traveler. The same brushstrokes, the same face, two completely opposite meanings. And 4 centuries later, the experts still cannot agree which one Rembrandt actually intended. Which leaves the real mystery. Someone, at some point, decided that turban had to go. They covered it with a safe, plain Dutch cap. They may also have painted clothing onto a naked child in the scene to make the whole thing more respectable. And the unfinished picture was completed, rather crudely, by another hand entirely. Was it censorship? Was it simply changing taste? Or just someone trying to finish a young man's abandoned canvas? Nobody can say for sure. The paint kept the secret. Now, here is where you would expect the fairy tale ending. A rediscovered Rembrandt, a hidden message, headlines racing around the world. Surely it sold for a staggering sum. It didn't. When the hammer fell in London, the painting went for £8 million, the very lowest price it was expected to reach, on a single bid to a buyer who had already agreed to take it before the auction even started. The room barely moved. Much of the lower half, it turns out, is in fragile condition. So the sensation and the sale were telling 2 completely different stories. And maybe that is the point. We wanted something clean, a hidden hero, a secret message, a triumphant ending. What we actually have is a face we are still arguing about, a mystery no amount of cleaning can solve, and a 21-year-old who painted his own mother and himself into a moment of welcome, and then let it slip quietly out of history. The turban stayed hidden for 400 years. Now it is back in the light. But the biggest question, what that figure was truly meant to say, is still painted over somewhere we cannot reach. So what do you think he is? A stranger being welcomed in, or a saint in disguise? Tell me in the comments. And if you want another masterpiece the experts still can't agree on, watch our video on the Salvator Mundi next. Until next time.